Ever get that feeling like there's this untapped power inside you, a kind of sleeping giant?
Yeah, like you're not quite firing on all cylinders.
Exactly. Well, today we're diving into a concept that might just be, the key. It's called sex transmutation.
And our guide is this really fascinating piece, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation.
So, what's the core idea here? Transmutation, changing energy.
Right. At its heart, it's about shifting energy.
Oh,
Specifically, taking the, intense energy tied to sexual desire
okay.
and consciously redirecting that mental focus, moving it away from only the physical expression.
Right. And let's be super clear up front. The text isn't talking about like becoming a monk or anything.
No, not at all. It stresses it's not celibacy, definitely not repression. It's framed as a positive, constructive thing.
Constructive. Good word. So for you listening, wanting to get these ideas fast and really get them,
Yeah, this deep dive is about cutting through maybe some of the misconceptions.
getting to the core of this, well, powerful idea, looking at how a fundamental human drive could be consciously aimed at, personal growth.
And if you think about those aha moments people chase, well, this suggests you could take this primal drive,
Hmm.
this incredibly strong force, and actively steer it towards what you want to achieve.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive,
Mhm.
pull out the key ideas on sex transmutation from the text.
Look at how it connects to creativity, maybe even genius, as the text calls it.
And the practical side, too. How might this actually, work in life?
Let's start with something the text hits hard: the sheer power of sexual desire itself.
Yeah, it doesn't really hold back on that point, does it?
Not at all. Calls it the most powerful of human desires, period.
Makes you think, why that desire? Evolutionarily, maybe? Survival, reproduction, the basics?
That seems logical, but the text goes further. It says if you channel this specific desire skillfully,
Okay.
it'll light a fire under your imagination, give you courage you didn't know you had, boost willpower, persistence,
And creativity, you mentioned.
big-time
Yeah.
creativity. And it uses this example. Think about it. People risking their lives, their reputations.
Just to indulge that desire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really shows its intensity.
Exactly. So transmutation suggests taking that level of intensity
Mhm.
and instead of just the physical release, using it to fuel breakthroughs in art, writing.
Even business, but you wouldn't immediately connect.
Right, that's the surprising part. Reframing this drive as potentially creative fuel.
That's a definite aha
Oh,
moment right there.
sorry.
Okay, so how does this actually happen? What's the mechanism of transmutation?
Well, the text explains it really boils down to willpower.
Willpower. Okay.
Consciously choosing to redirect the impulse for physical expression into other things.
Things that enrich you.
Exactly. Body, mind, spirit. The text uses this analogy of a dammed river.
Ah, I remember that.
The water, the sexual motion, it has to go somewhere, right? If one path is blocked, it finds another.
So transmutation is about creating a positive path for it.
Precisely. A constructive channel.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting it flood, you direct it.
And this leads to that pretty bold claim you mentioned earlier.
The genius performance one.
Achieving genius performance through this. That's significant.
It is a big claim.
Yeah.
And the text backs it up with what it calls significant research findings.
Okay, not just casual thoughts then. What kind of research?
It says it's based on looking at biographies, historical records,
Okay.
spanning over 2,000 years.
2,000 years. Wow. That's quite a scope. What did they find?
Two main things stood out. First, the people who achieved the most,
Yeah.
the highest achievers.
Yeah.
They tended to have, highly developed sexual natures. But crucially,
They knew how to transmute it.
they'd mastered it.
Yeah.
That conscious redirection. That was the key differentiator, it seems.
Okay, that's one. What was the second?
The second finding was that a lot of people who built great fortunes or got major recognition were often motivated by romantic love, a deep connection with someone.
Romantic love as a motivator. Interesting. We should circle back to that.
Definitely.
But this idea of sexual emotion providing a superpower for action, that's striking.
It really is. And that animal analogy it uses.
Oh, right. The neutered animals becoming docile. It's blunt, but it makes the point.
It's very direct, yes.
Yeah.
But the principle it's illustrating is that link between the sex drive
Yeah.
and just drive.
Yeah.
Motivation, action.
So it's suggesting that energy is tied to our fundamental will to do things.
That's the argument. Okay, so we have the power, the idea of redirecting it. Now, the text talks about mind stimuli,
Right, and it puts sexual desire right at the top of the list. Number one.
and that placement is deliberate. It's saying this is the most intense, the most powerful trigger for the mind.
More powerful than what else was on there? Love, desire for fame, money.
Music, friendship, even things like shared suffering, autosuggestion, those are listed as constructive.
And then destructive ones like fear, narcotics, alcohol.
Right. But sex desire is presented as the top stimulant, the one most capable of increasing what the text calls mental vibration.
Boosting mental function, basically.
Exactly. So if you're looking for the most potent energy source for the mind, according to this text,
This is it.
this is presented as the one, which leads us naturally to how the text defines genius.
Oh, yes. Let's unpack that. It's not just about IQ, is it?
No, it's more about function. A genius is someone who can ramp up their mental intensity, their focus,
Okay.
to the point where they can tap into knowledge sources beyond everyday thinking.
Beyond the ordinary chatter in our heads, and this connects to the sixth sense.
Yes, or creative imagination. That's the term the text uses.
Mm.
This faculty is seen as the bridge
The bridge between what?
between our, finite minds and what it calls infinite intelligence.
Infinite intelligence. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a big concept.
It is. The text suggests major insights, big discoveries, even religious revelations come through this faculty.
So those sudden ideas, gut feelings, where do they come from then?
According to the text, 4 possibilities.
Hmm.
That infinite intelligence, your own subconscious mind.
Which stores everything.
Right. Or, interestingly, the mind of another person, either their conscious thoughts or their subconscious.
Tapping into others' minds. That
Yeah.
sounds a bit out there.
The text acknowledges it's a bit mysterious how that works, but it posits those as the sources of truly inspired ideas.
And the key to accessing this creative imagination is stimulating the mind, using those stimuli we talked about.
Exactly. Lifting the mind to a higher level of vibration, with sexual desire being the most potent way to do that. The airplane analogy is pretty good here.
Oh yeah, explain that one.
Well, like an airplane climbing, stimulating your mind lifts you above the landscape of ordinary thought.
So you can see more, new perspectives.
Precisely. You get a wider view, access ideas you wouldn't see from ground level, from your everyday worries.
And this higher level, it frees up the sixth sense, makes it receptive.
That's the idea. It's what separates the genius from the average person, according to the text. It even connects our conscience to this.
Our conscience is the sixth sense.
That's the suggestion, that inner voice guiding you. And there are those anecdotes.
The speaker closing his eyes.
Right, saying the ideas come from within. Or the financier pausing, closing his eyes before big decisions.
Claiming to tap into a higher intelligence.
Yeah, showing reliance on something beyond just logic.
And what about Dr. Gates, the inventor?
Ah, Dr. Elmer R. Gates. Fascinating case. He had this special room, his personal communication room.
Darkened, quiet.
Yes. He'd sit there, focus intensely on the known parts of an invention he was working on.
And wait for the unknown parts to come.
Exactly. He let the ideas for the missing pieces just appear. And apparently it worked. Over 200 patents.
Wow. So deliberate use of this creative faculty.
Deliberate and purposeful. And the text argues these ideas from the creative faculty are often more reliable than reason alone.
Because reason can be biased by our past experiences, which might be flawed.
That's the point. The creative faculty taps into deeper, maybe less biased sources. It contrasts the genius inventor using this.
With the crank inventor who doesn't.
Right. Real innovation comes from stimulating the mind, focusing, and letting the subconscious deliver the answers.
Which loops us back to love and romance again.
Yes. The strong connection the text makes between great leaders and being inspired by love.
Igniting their creativity through, ultimately, that sexual desire stimulus.
The examples given are people like Lincoln, apparently inspired by Anne Rutledge, and Napoleon.
Napoleon and Josephine, that's a famous one. The text suggests his peak was when he was inspired by her.
And it even notes a decline after he, moved on from her, implying a direct link.
That's quite the claim. And the observation about others declining after leaving their first loves adds complexity.
It really does. It suggests maybe the quality of the connection matters, not just the raw desire.
So sex alone is powerful, but love plus sex, that brings something else.
Calmness, poise, better judgment. That's what the text argues. A more balanced, potent combination.
Okay, which might explain the next point. Why big success often comes later in life, ages 40 to 60, the text found.
Yeah, from analyzing, over 25,000 people.
Yeah.
A huge sample.
Why then? Why not earlier?
The text suggests it's because younger people tend to, dissipate that sexual energy more physically.
the whole sowing one's wild oats idea.
Exactly. Without fully understanding or harnessing its other potentials, it takes time, experience perhaps, to learn transmutation.
To refine that raw energy into the genius mode.
That seems to be the reasoning, learning to consciously direct it.
And the text touches on using artificial stimulants, right? Like Poe using alcohol.
Yes, Poe, Riley, Burns are mentioned, but with a strong warning.
Right, about the destructive side. It pushes for the natural stimulants instead.
Deep love, the sex drive itself when transmuted, autosuggestion, teachers safer, more sustainable options.
Which makes sense. It's about healthy channeling. Now, shifting slightly, personal magnetism.
Ah, yes, the link to sales performance.
The finding that people with high sex drives often make the best salespeople, that's unexpected.
It is, but the text equates this personal magnetism directly with sex energy.
How does that energy get communicated, though?
Through subtle things. A firm handshake, the tone of voice, posture, how you carry yourself.
Even thought vibrations. Body adornment.
That's what it lists. It suggests top salespeople are often unconsciously transmuting that energy into sales enthusiasm.
Making them more compelling, more influential. Like that energy is almost tangible.
That's the feeling it conveys. Which brings us to a really crucial point the text makes.
The misunderstandings around sex.
Exactly. How the word itself has been, dragged through the mud historically. Slandered and burlesqued, it says.
Leading to wrong ideas, like thinking a high sex drive is bad or causing inferiority complexes.
Yeah, this historical negativity is a major roadblock to understanding its potential. The text is clear. The energy itself isn't bad.
It's a virtue, it says, when used intelligently, discriminatingly.
Right. Like anything powerful, it needs wisdom. Intemperance in sex is just as harmful as overdoing food or drink.
And can actually block the creative imagination if it becomes an obsession.
Definitely. It mentions losing reason, willpower, similar to drug addiction, potentially hindering mental function.
So ignorance isn't bliss here. Not understanding transmutation means missing out on benefits.
And maybe even facing penalties. It's presented as that important.
And circling back one more time to love, its role in sustained achievement.
Yes, reinforcing that finding.
Yeah.
Great leaders often driven by deep love for someone.
And that love brings out different qualities. Artistic, aesthetic, leaves a lasting mark.
That's the idea. It even suggests revisiting memories of past love as a source of inspiration, a comfort.
That's quite poignant, and it says not to despair over lost love.
Right, because its influence endures and new love can emerge. It differentiates love's spiritual side from sex's biological side.
And then ties them together. Love, romance, and sex. The eternal triangle of achievement-building genius.
A powerful trio.
Oh.
Nature's way of creating geniuses, the text suggests.
And the final point there, you can't hold positive and negative emotions at the same time.
Right, one will dominate. So, consciously choose the positive. Cultivate love. Channel that energy constructively.
To make space for genius, for achievement.
That's the concluding thought in that section.
Okay. Let's try to boil this all down. What's the absolute core takeaway from this deep dive?
I think it's that sex transmutation, this idea of consciously redirecting that incredibly powerful sexual energy, can act as a major catalyst for boosting creativity, maybe reaching that genius-level thinking, and ultimately achieving more.
And crucially, it's not about squashing natural desires. That's key, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. It's about conscious choice, channeling that energy toward constructive, enriching goals.
Which really leads to a question for you, listening.
Yeah. What's the most powerful driving force in your life right now?
And could you consciously explore transmuting that energy, using it to fuel your biggest goals, to unlock more potential?
It's definitely food for thought, reflecting on those historical examples or people you know.
Seeing the interplay between their drives, their relationships, their successes.
Yeah. We really encourage you to mull over these ideas, see how they might fit or not fit into your own journey of learning and growth.